Every day, hundreds of students enter the doors of Gomez Heritage Elementary School in South Omaha, Nebraska. All of them are elementary school students, and most of them are first-generation Americans. They love the school and everything it has to offer. A fairly new school, built in 2004, it's named after two icons that have been woven through the South Omaha community. The last part of the school's name represents what South Omaha has stood for many generations: heritage. The Stockyards meatpacking plants opened just south of Omaha in the late 1880s and became a regional meatpacking center just 10 years after its inception. This drew thousands of immigrants to the town to work at the plants. In the beginning, the immigrants were mainly from Southern and Eastern Europe. At the turn of the century, nearly 40% of the residents were involved with the meatpacking industry, and nearly all of them were immigrants. South Omaha quickly became home to Irish, German, Polish, Czech, Italian, Greek, and, most recently, Hispanic Americans. For over a century, South Omaha has epitomized the American dream, serving as a catalyst for bettering the lives of these immigrants. Stories of meatpackers' children going on to become doctors and lawyers are not uncommon among older generations of immigrants. It has served as home to first-generation Americans for decades. It only made sense that a school located in this part of town should have a name that represents all the types of people who have worked at bettering their lives in these surrounding neighborhoods. The first part of the name represents a more recent icon in South Omaha's history. Edward Babe Gomez, a Nebraska hero, is the namesake of the building. In a way, Gomez also symbolizes the American dream. A two-time Purple Heart recipient, Congressional Medal of Honor winner, and South Omaha native, his story of courage, loyalty, and selflessness teaches the children of Gomez School just as much as the teachers inside. Growing up near 27th and Q Streets, Edward Babe Gomez promised his mother, Matiana, a busy homemaker of 13 children, that someday he would buy her her own house. She smiled and nodded, not quite taking his words to heart, and went back to her work. As a young boy, he fully believed in the weight of his words. When he couldn't yet afford a house, he bought her a washing machine and refrigerator by working full-time during the summer as a teenager. Babe Gomez never said things he didn't mean, and he never backed down from a challenge. Even as a boy, he knew, no matter what, he would someday get his mother a house of her very own. The third child of 13, Babe was born in Omaha, Nebraska on August 10, 1932. He was curious, fun-loving, and fearless. Babe had a vibrant personality and a good heart. He never outgrew these childhood qualities and carried them with him to the end of his life. He loved singing, and one of his favorite songs was the popular Cuban song, Quizás, Quizás, Quizás. For the early years of Babe's life, his family only spoke Spanish. His older brother Roberto recalled them being sent home from Highland Elementary because they didn't know English. The Gomezes were by no means wealthy, but they lived a good life, rich with the constant presence of loving family members and great friends. He spent most of his days playing with his many siblings and friends around the Omaha Stockyards, where his father, Modesto, an immigrant from Zacatecas, Mexico, worked at faithfully for 28 years. Dr. Jim Ramirez, a frequent playmate of Babe's, fondly recalls childhood memories of the two of them.
Well, we were in the same neighborhood, and he had a big family up the street, and I had a smaller family down the street, and we played together. A lot of times, the area that we grew up in had real tall weeds, and it was next to a dump next to Swift's packing house, and we used to play in those weeds, and we'd play war, if you will. And I always remember that Babe, and I've told this over and over, used to really die good. You know, when you're playing cops and robbers or this and that, and you shoot somebody and it takes them 3-4 seconds to fall down. He did that really well, and he was such a character.
Although Babe's fearlessness was inspiring, it often got him into trouble.
One of the things that I remember about Babe is we were sled riding. He lived up the hill, and there was a very steep hill, and we were sled riding, and I was stationed at the bottom of the hill, to warn him if cars were coming. In those days, there weren't a lot of cars because nobody had cars hardly. But here comes Babe down the hill, and here comes a car, and I couldn't stop him. I tried to wave him down, and sure enough, he hit that car and spun around and cut his face pretty badly, which if you see pictures of him, you'll see that scar there. And we both panicked, and he ran up the hill bleeding, and I ran back to my house scared as hell. And the driver wanted to know what he could do, and he just kept going after he saw us both run. But that was the most memorable thing that I remember about Babe.
The sledding incident certainly didn't curtail his spunk, which landed him in the state reform school in Kearney, Nebraska, nearly 3 hours away from his home, for stealing someone's bike, taking apart the pieces, and burying it. Leaving South High wasn't easy for Babe. However, it was at the state reform school that he became interested in boxing. His fearless personality, protective instinct, and athletic ability made him an excellent featherweight boxer, allowing him to compete at the Midwest Golden Gloves in Chicago, Illinois in 1947 when he was just 16 years old. During this time, Babe decided that he wanted more adventure in his life, prompting him to enlist in the Marines the day after his 17th birthday, on August 11, 1949. He dropped out of the reform school and joined a traveling circus, simply because he thought it would be fun. He found out, however, that working with a traveling circus was an extremely difficult job. He lasted only 3 months and then started boxing for the Marine Corps Reserve. The Marines activated his duty 4 months after the Korean War began in 1950. He received infantry training in San Diego, California, and was put into action on April 5, 1951, nearly a year after the conflict began, as an ammo carrier for machine guns in the 18th Reserve Battalion, Company E. Babe wanted adventure, and adventure he was going to get. The Korean War officially began on June 25, 1950. It is often called the Forgotten War because it was sandwiched in between two major polarizing wars, and because it was one of the first big military conflicts that the United States didn't win. However forgotten it may be, the Korean War was one of the most important wars fought between the West and communism. Only 5 years after the end of World War II, young men once again found themselves in combat. A bitter war in a country filled with rice paddies, rolling hills, and rugged mountains, Korea had been a battleground between China, Japan, and Russia, but it wasn't a particularly strategic area for the United States. Before the war, many Americans had never heard of the country, and even throughout the conflict, some still couldn't have located it on a map. There were 16 different armies from 5 continents that were deployed under the United States command. There were millions of deaths and countless divided families from every corner of the world. Some estimates of death during the war are as high as 10 million, with 3 million civilian deaths and 7 million military deaths. So many exceptional men died in battle, and Private First Class Edward Gomez can be counted among them. Gomez and his gunmate, Oscar Chalo Franco, landed in Korea in April of 1951. They teamed up together because they were the only Mexicans in the company, and they were both assigned duty as machine gun ammunition carriers. Franco says he recalls Babe not remembering much Spanish, but he did know all the words to the Spanish song Quizás, 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 and sang it often to keep spirits up. For the first 2 months of the tour, they were south of the 38th parallel, which is the dividing line between North and South Korea. In June of 1951, a year after the conflict began, Babe was injured. He suffered a thigh wound near Hanyang, South Korea. He didn't let this bring him down. Babe had a strong sense of loyalty to his men, and eventually he returned to active duty and was promoted to a machine gunner. He received a Purple Heart for his wounds received in action. On September 13, 1951, Easy Company had just been through bloody combat. The battalion won the summit of Hill 749, a necessary and strategic piece of land that was just 40 miles north of the 38th parallel. The men fought with .45 caliber handguns, automatic weapons, and hand grenades, which ultimately proved to be Gomez's demise. On September 14, 1951, the push for Hill 749 resumed on the wooded northern slope where hidden North Korea bunkers had to be knocked out one by one in order to gain control of the hill. Easy Company was in charge of leading this operation. At 8 o'clock in the morning, the Marines attacked the advancing soldiers under a withering barrage of mortar, artillery, and automatic weapons fire. The squad of .30 caliber machine guns, which Gomez was a part of, was facing the advancing riflemen. At one point in the attack, Gomez picked up a grenade that was thrown at the men and landed among the Marines, and hurled it back towards the advancing soldiers. The squad left to meet a counterattack, while Gomez moved down a trench to search for a new location for the machine gun. Another grenade landed in between Gomez and the squad. Without a second thought, Gomez quickly picked up the grenade, pulled it into his stomach, spun his body away from his men, and fell on it. He sacrificed his life for the lives of all of his men without giving a second thought as to his own. Found on Babe's body was a Catholic prayer book, a rosary, 2 religious medals, 15 American cents, a souvenir spoon, brown wallet, an address book, a Marine identification card, and miscellaneous photographs and papers. Chalo Franco was with him when he wrote his final letter home. They found a priest for confession. One of the last things his comrades heard him say was, "If 3rd Platoon can't take this knob hill, nobody can." Even in his final minutes, Gomez was exhibiting his fearless, competitive spirit. Babe must have had some sense of his impending death on that fateful morning. His final letter home rang of the love he had for his friends, family, and country. In the words of a young boy facing death, he made a lasting mark on those who loved him.
I'm writing this on the possibility that I may die in this next assault. You will hear about it before getting this letter, and I hope you don't take it too hard. I am not sorry I died because I died fighting for my country, and that's the number one thing in everyone's life, to keep his home and country from being won over by such things as communism. I am very proud to have done what little I have done. Be proud of me, Mom, because even though I'm scared now, I know what I'm doing is worth it. Tell Dad I died like a man he wanted me to be. I hope this doesn't break your heart. I love you. The kids, remind them of me once in a while, and never forget, kids, fight only for what you believe in. That's what I'm fighting for. All of my undying love, Babe.
Babe was temporarily buried in the United Nations Military Cemetery in Tangkok, Korea. 4 months later, his body was returned to the United States, and he was laid to rest in St. Mary's Cemetery in South Omaha. Edward Gomez was posthumously awarded a second Purple Heart and the Congressional Medal of Honor, the highest award that can be bestowed upon by the military, awarded for personal acts of valor above and beyond the call of duty. When the Medal of Honor was awarded to Gomez, only 3,414 servicemen had received it since its establishment by President Lincoln during the Civil War. As of today, 3,468 servicemen have received it. There have only been 297 Marines bestowed with this honor, 42 of them whom fought in the Korean War. Only 44 medals have been given to Mexican Americans. Receiving this prestigious award in and of itself is an incredible honor. But for Babe, this honor was not just for him. The award was for his family, his friends, his neighbors, his teachers. The whole South Omaha community was honored by the boy who grew up in its streets and died for his country. Matiano and Modesto refused to travel to Washington, D.C. to receive Babe's Medal of Honor, saying that the triumph that their son gained in death belonged to his hometown, witnessed by his neighbors in the church of his faith. The medal was presented to his parents and the entire South Omaha community in July of 1952 at Our Lady of Guadalupe Church on 23rd and O Street. The church was so crammed with people on the day of his funeral that they spilled outside.
Well, when you're young like that, you think you're going to live forever. And so I learned that if you go to war, you may not live to be an old man. And so it gave me another outlook on death. So I began to think of death as differently that could happen to young people as well as old people, because for many, many years, I never even went to a funeral or knew of anybody that died. And all of a sudden, my best friends had died very young.
Although Babe Gomez physically left this world on September 14, 1951, his incredible legacy continues to live on. A street running through South Omaha that goes between 25th and Y and 36th and M Streets was renamed to Edward Babe Gomez Ave in 1973 in his honor. There is a GI Forum Babe Gomez chapter on 20th and N Streets in Omaha, Nebraska. Various plaques and tributes to him are located throughout the entire city and state, including a portrait of him located in the Hall of Justice at the Civic Center, a flagpole dedicated to him at his cemetery, a mural in the state capitol building in Lincoln, Nebraska, and a portrait of him in the South Omaha Boys and Girls Club, as well as many other places. Gomez Hall, which was built to serve as a new utility building, was dedicated to the heroic actions of Private First Class Gomez, a former student at the Reform School in Kearney, for the memory of the boy once sent here by the society for which he later gave his life to preserve. The image of Private First Class Edward Babe Gomez is highly recognizable in South Omaha today. With streets, schools, murals, and more dedicated to him, his memory, his heroic actions, and his legacy will stay alive amongst the streets he used to hang around and play war with his buddies as a kid, ignorant to the fact that one would someday be named for him. Edward Babe Gomez Heritage Elementary School, located in nearly the exact spot as where Babe had his sledding accident as a child, serves to help children grow and learn from his very own heroic actions.
Gomez Heritage has approximately 840 students. We go from pre-kindergarten to 4th grade, and mainly a Hispanic population in South Omaha on 17th and Q Street.
Back in 2002, they started talking about building this new school, and it would be a primary center, which was very exciting for us. And then when it was time to name the building, Heritage was winning out because it represented all the heritages that built South Omaha working in the packing plant. But now South 24th Street is alive again, and it's because of the new heritage that's here, and that would be the Hispanic culture. And to honor them and to represent our current status here in South Omaha, it was recommended that Edward Babe Gomez would be a good name for our building, since he is a Congressional Medal of Honor winner from our area. He grew up sliding down the hills at 17th and B, and he attended South High School. And we actually are the first building in Nebraska to be named after a Hispanic member of society. So we're very proud of that. It represents our students because we are blessed with the majority of our students are Hispanic, and among other cultures. So it kind of, the Gomez heritage brings us all together.
Gus, 4th grade, bravery, because he did a lot of things that other people wouldn't do.
Joanna, 4th grade, he worked hard to be in the military.
Lino, 4th grade, I can learn from Edward Babe Gomez that to have enough courage to sacrifice.
Muhammad, 4th grade, Babe Gomez was a hero.
The most important thing, however, that Babe Gomez has given back is his word. The promise he made to his mother years earlier that someday he would give her her own house. With the war insurance money collected from his death, his parents were finally able to buy their own home, something that Babe had wanted so badly for them, and something that he had worked to give his mother and his entire family, something that the entire South Omaha community can relate to, a better life.
What was the most important thing that Babe taught you in real life or in his heroic death?
Don't take any crap from anybody, because we were, like I said, we were small guys, and sometimes people have a tendency to pick on smaller guys, and we didn't take any stuff from hardly anybody, which got us into a few scraps. But I guess maybe it was through all of our South Omaha genes that you didn't take any crap from anybody.
Although backwards in a way, Private First Class Edward Gomez has given his family and his community more in his death than he ever could have dreamed of in his life. A legacy, a lesson, and a life story dedicated to protecting your family, staying true to your word, and never ever backing down from a challenge. He stands as a model for children and adults everywhere. Nothing can match his own final, lasting words. Never forget, kids, fight only for what you believe in. That's what I'm fighting for. Babe's sacrifice was not all for naught. Edward Gomez will never be forgotten. His legacy will continue on. His memory will never fade, and his amazing story of utmost selflessness, heroic courage, and simple hope to achieve the American dream will be remembered by those who love, respect, and look up to him for generations to come.